I'm using the wrong mic. I just realized that. Let me switch that over really quick. Wrong mic, wrong mic.
There we go. Now we're cooking. I put the lid back on. Good morning, friends. I'm only almost an hour late. Sorry. I woke up at 5 and then closed my eyes for a little bit. And that little bit ended up being more like 35, 40 minutes. And I was like, and then I opened my eyes again and I was like, well, shit, I'm late. So, we are going to spend the next little bit of time launching right into the art of game design. So, take a load off.
With the American
Sit
Express
back,
Platinum card, you can unlock experiences like no other.
ads.
Find out your welcome offer and
Fucking
kickstart your next
ads.
unforgettable.
We're going to be occasionally skipping ads, but we will be essentially just going through and reading this book. Keep in mind, as I will be reading, I will be a little bit less focused on the actual chat itself. Just want you to stay dialed in and know that we're focusing on the book today. So, we're going to launch right on in to the start of it. Get past the table of contents here. There's so many lenses, it's crazy. Okay. Launching in. Hello there. Come on in. What a nice surprise. I had no idea you'd be visiting today. I'm sorry if it is a little messy in here. I've been writing. Please, make yourself comfortable. Good, good. Now, let's see. Where should we begin? Oh, I should introduce myself. My name is Jesse Schell, and I have always loved designing games. Here's a picture of me. I was shorter then. Since that picture was taken, I've done a lot of different things. I've worked in circuses as a professional juggler. I've been a writer, comedian, and magician's apprentice. I've worked at IBM and Bell Communications Research as a software engineer. I've designed and developed interactive theme park rides and massively multiplayer games for the Walt Disney Company. I've started my own game studio and become a professor at Carnegie Mellon University. But when people ask me what I do, I tell them that I am a game designer. I mention all this only because at various times in this book, I will be drawing examples from these experiences, since every single one of them has taught me valuable lessons about the art of game design. That might sound surprising now, but hopefully as you read this book, it will help you see the ways that game design meaningfully connects to many experiences in your own life. Let's back a little bit, that way I'm not accidentally potentially hitting the wrong button. One thing I should clarify. While the goal of this book is primarily to teach you how to be a better video game designer, many of the principles we explore will have little to do with video games specifically. You will find they are more broadly applicable than that. The good news is that much of what you read on here will work equally well no matter what kind of game you're designing, digital, analog, or otherwise. What is game design? As we begin, it's important for us to be absolutely clear about what is meant by game design. After all, It is what the whole rest of the book is about, and some people seem to be a bit confused about it. Game design is the act of deciding what a game should be. That's it. On the surface, it sounds too simple. You mean you design a game by just making one decision? No. To decide what a game is, you must make hundreds, usually thousands, of decisions. Don't I need special equipment to design a game? No. Since game design is simply decision making, you can actually design a game in your head. Usually though, you'll still want to write down these decisions because our memories are weak, and it's easy to miss something important if you don't write things down. Further, if you want other people to help you make decisions, or to help build the game, you need to communicate these decisions to them somehow, and writing them down is a good way to do that. What about programming? Don't game designers have to be computer programmers? No, they don't. First of all, many games can be played without the use of computers or technology. Board games, card games, and athletic games, for example. Secondly, even for computer games or video games, it's possible to make the decisions about what those games should be without knowing all the technical details of how those decisions are carried out. Of course, it can be a tremendous help if you do know the details, just as being a skilled writer or artist can help. This allows you to make better decisions more quickly, but it's not strictly necessary. It's like the relationship between architects and carpenters. An architect doesn't need to know everything the carpenter knows, but an architect must know everything the carpenter is capable of. So you mean that the game designer just comes up with a story for the game? No. Story decisions are one aspect of game design, but there are many, many others. Decisions about rules, look and feel, timing, pacing, risk-taking, rewards, punishments, and everything else the player experiences is the responsibility of the game designer. So the game designer makes decisions about what the game should be, writes them down, and moves on? Almost never. None of us has a perfect imagination, and the games we design in our heads and on paper almost never come out quite the way we expected. Many decisions are impossible to make until the designer has seen the game in action. For this reason, the designer is usually involved. Freaking ads, man. For this reason, the designer is usually involved in the development of a game from the very beginning to the very end, making decisions about how the game should be all along the way. It's important to make the distinction between game developer and game designer. A game developer is anyone who has any involvement with the creation of the game at all. I don't necessarily agree with that. I understand the thought process behind that statement, but I don't think I necessarily agree with that. There is a very, very clear distinction, at the very least, when we're talking about digital games, which is the area that I want to be involved in. So, generally speaking, a developer, and again, this is just personal interpretations of what I've learned based on the course that I've gone through. Developers are people who are specifically and primarily focused on the programming side of digital games. Designers are focused on the systems of games. So, an example in Skyrim might be the designers say, we want to have, two main types of weapons, one-handed and two-handed, and we want to have 4 different variations of one-handed and two-handed weapons within this game, and we want all of them to act in these specific ways to make them feel these, to give the player this specific feeling of what makes them distinct and unique, and we want them to be tied to these specific things in these perk trees, to allow people to continue to grow and express to continue to explore player expression through these gameplay systems. The programmer then says, or the developer then says, okay, we're going to take what you've just given us in this design document where you've labeled all of these different things, where you want one-handed and two-handed weapons, you want hammers, you want axes, you want maces, and amongst all of those things, you are then going to be testing out, you're going to be putting together a system that implements all these things and testing out how do we want these things to be balanced. The developers are going to be writing the code to implement the designs that are described by the game designers, by the systems that are described by the game designers, and then both the developers and the designers are going to be testing and testing these things to try to ensure that the feel of what it is that they are describing is effectively making its way into the game in a way that feels fun, and accomplishes the specific goals that are defined very early on in the project. I can give you an example of what some of those goals might actually look like. So, I've been given permission by my groupmates to actually talk about our project and share some stuff in regards to it. So, one of the things that I can tell you guys is that for the project that we put together, it is a package delivery game called Odd Contents, and it is a 2D top-down narrative-driven cozy horror RPG. Those are very, very intentional words that very specifically describe what you are expecting to experience when you play that game. That specific string of words was the result of multiple hours-long conversations with my groupmates to establish what the thematic elements of the game were going to be, what we wanted to focus on from a gameplay perspective, and what specific types of visuals and or mechanics that you would be capable of expecting when you launch the game. All of those words have very, very specific connotations that come to people's mind when you mention them. And if you wanted some type of indicator as to what the game could be compared to give you even more of a refined idea of what we were kind of going for, we wanted to shoot for some of the mechanical aspects that come from Easy Delivery Company, the visual aesthetic that comes from Cult of the Lamb, and the very laid-back experience mechanically that you get from Animal Crossing. Those are the types of questions that you are trying to answer when you are in pre-production of a game. You are constantly asking, because what you don't realize is that when you are...
Thanks, Mike.
See you next
Man,
month.
So you can get these delivered? It's literally watered up.
what I think many people don't realize, including myself prior to actually taking this course, was that pre-production pre-production was a very amorphous term to me. I had no idea what that meant. Pre-production to me kind of felt like maybe there's some people that are occasionally having meetings about this stuff. No, pre-production is a very, very... It is arguably one of the most fun and enjoyable parts of the creative process for making a game, because when you're in pre-production, you're essentially just answering as many creative questions as possible. Like, you are doing as many of the broad stroke creative answerings of things as possible. And that is very fun. It's very creatively filled. Your kind of creative juices just get to go wild. It is a blast. And I think that when you're talking about game development, I'm using that term loosely because, again, there's a distinction between developers and designers. But when you're talking about game development, in the very loose sense of the term, you generally are left with a lot of people who think about the hyper creative realities of it. And there are a lot of hyper creative realities of it, but most of those... Yes, I am letting Spiff's Skyrim video run in the background. What's up, Zala? I'm letting it run in the background as we start reading through the Art of Game Design, and I am not even technically on page 1. I'm still in the prelude to the book, and I've already found something that I disagree with the author on, namely their distinction between game developer and game designer. They're saying that a game developer is anyone who has any involvement with the creation of a game at all, and a designer is someone who is specifically making a shit ton of decisions about the game systems. Broadly speaking, you can say that, but in my opinion, I think that developers, when you talk about a game developer, more strictly speaking, you are kind of talking about, in my opinion, again, this is all kind of very semantic stuff, but in my opinion, you are implementing the systems that the designers are creating. Now, talking about the development cycle as a whole, sure, you could make the statement that a developer is anyone who had involvement in the creation of the game at all. But development in the context of job titles, a developer is someone who is generally implementing code for the systems that accomplish the goals and the feels that the designers are hoping to capture in the documents that they are creating for the things that they want to have implemented in their game. And so I was kind of going into some of my own anecdotal experiences to detail what specifically designers do and how that ties in with developers, and how pre-production is something that I came to understand more effectively over the course of my game design program that I was going through. Anyways, so that's kind of the gist of that, but I'm going to continue reading this book. So let's launch back into it. Engineers, animators, modelers, musicians, writers, producers, and designers who work on games are all game developers. Very broadly speaking, yes. Game designers are just one species of game developer. So the game designer is the only one allowed to make decisions about the game? Let's turn that around. Anyone who makes decisions about how the game should be is a game designer. Designer is a role, not a person. Almost every developer on a team makes some decisions about how the game will be, just through the act of creating content for the game. These decisions are game design decisions, and when you make them, you are a game designer. For this reason, no matter what your role on game development team, and understanding the principles of game design will make you better at what you do. That I do agree with. That I wholeheartedly agree with. Waiting for Mendeleev. I don't know who that is. But we got a quote here. The voyage of discovery is not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. Marcel Proust. The goal of this book is to make you the best game designer you can be. Unfortunately, at present, there is no unified theory of game design, no simple formula that shows us how to make good games. So, what can we do? We're in a position something like in the ancient
Milton loves
Oh my
rolls.
goodness, dude. I guess I should have expected this from the Spiffing Bread video, but I'm getting ads left and right. That's crazy, bro. We're in a position something like the ancient alchemists. In the time before Mendeleev. Who is Mendeleev, and how do you actually pronounce that? I'm gonna open up a new tab here. Dmitry Mendeleev. Oh, he's an alchemist. Died in February 2nd, 1907. Russian chemist, not alchemist, but whatever. Chemist and science historian. Oh, he created the periodic table of elements. Okay, cool. Notable individual. Quite notable individual if he made the periodic table of elements. Because that shit had been around for a minute and is used everywhere. I need to double check and see what time I work today. I know. I don't remember whether or not I work. Close out of that. Let me double check my schedule really quick. Then we'll launch in to the book a bit more. Cool. That is when I work. Work at 9 a.m. Alright, back to it. In the time before Mendeleev discovered the periodic table, okay, literally says the periodic table right there. Durr. Good job, Caleb. Could have just kept reading. Showing how all the fundamental elements were interrelated, alchemists relied on a patchwork quilt of rules of thumb about how different chemicals could combine. These were necessarily incomplete, sometimes incorrect, and often semi-mystical. But by using these rules, the alchemists were able to accomplish surprising things, and their pursuit of the truth eventually led to modern chemistry. Game designers await their Mendeleev. At this point, we have no periodic table. We have our own patchwork of principles and rules, which, less than perfect, allows us to get the job done. I've tried to gather the best of these. I've tried to gather the best of these into one place so that you can study them, consider them, make use of them, and see how others have used them. Good game design happens when you view your game from as many perspectives as possible. I refer to these perspectives as lenses, because each one is a way of viewing your design. The lenses are small sets of questions you should ask for yourself about your design. They are not blueprints or recipes, but tools for examining your design. They will be introduced one at a time throughout the book. A deck of cards, with one card summarizing each lens, has been created to accompany this book, and is available at www.artofgamedesign.com. To make it easy to use the lenses while you are designing. Oh, here we go. None of the lenses are perfect, and none are complete. but each is useful in one context or another, for each gives you a unique perspective on your design. The idea is that even though we can't have one complete picture by taking all of these small, imperfect lenses and using them to view your problem from many different perspectives, you will be able to use your discretion to figure out the best design. I wish we had one all-seeing lens. We don't. So, instead of discarding the many imperfect ones we do have, it's wisest to collect and use as wide a variety of them as possible. For, as we will see, game design is more art than science, more like cooking than chemistry, and we must admit the possibility that our Mendeleev will never come. Focus on fundamentals. Many people assume that to best study principles of game design, one would naturally study the most modern, complex, high-tech games that are available. This approach is completely wrong. Video games are just a natural growth of traditional games into a new medium. The rules that govern them are still the same. An architect must understand how to design a shed before he can design a skyscraper, and so we will often be studying some of the very simplest games. Some of these will be video games, but some will be far simpler. Dice games, card games, board games, playground games. If we cannot understand the principles of these games, how can we have a hope of understanding more complex games? Some will argue that these games are old and therefore not worth studying, but as Thoreau said, quote, "We might as well omit to study nature
How much could you
because
save by
she
switching
is
your car
old,"
insurance to
unquote.
Allstate?
I actually like
Well,
that
let's
quote.
say this is you.
Hello.
And this is you with 7.
A game is a game. A game is a game is a game. The principles that make the classic games fun are the same principles that make most modern games fun. The classic games that have the added advantage that they have withstood the tests of time. Their success is not due to the novelty of their technology, which is the case with many modern games. These classic games have deeper qualities that, as game designers, we must learn to understand. As well as focus on classic games, this book will strive to deliver the deepest, most fundamental principles of game design, as opposed to genre-specific principles. 15 tips for a better story-based first-person shooter. Because genres come and go, but the basic principles of game design are principles of human psychology that have been with us for ages and will be with us for ages to come. Well versed in these fundamentals, you will be able to master any genre that appears, and even invent new genres of your own. As opposed to other books on game design whose goals often seem to be to cover as much ground as possible, this book will not strive to cover ground, but to teach you to dig in the most fertile places. And though this book will teach you principles, you will be able to use And though this book will teach you principles that you will be able to use to create traditional board and card games, it is very much slanted toward the video game industry. Why? Because a game designer's job is to create new games. The exploration in the field of game design such as the world has never seen. There are more game designers alive today than have ever been alive in all of human history. Chances are, if you want to create games, you'll be creating them somewhere on the cutting edge of this new technology, and this book is prepared to show you how to do just that. Although the principles here will work just as well with more traditional game genres. Talk to strangers. Do not forget to entertain strangers, for by so doing, some have unwittingly entertained angels. Hebrews 13:2. Game developers have a reputation for xenophobia, that is, fear of strangers. By this, I mean not unfamiliar individuals, but rather unfamiliar techniques, practices, and principles. It almost seems like they believe that if it didn't originate in the games industry, that it isn't worth considering. The truth is really that game developers are usually just too busy to look outside their immediate surroundings. Making good games is hard, so developers keep their heads down, stay focused, and get the job done. They usually don't have the time to seek out new techniques, figure out how to integrate them into their games, and take the risk that a new technique might fail. So, they play it safe, and stick with what they know, which unfortunately leads to a lot of the cookie-cutter game titles that you've seen on the market. But to succeed, to create something great and innovative, you have to do something different. This is not a book about how to make cookie-cutter games. It's a book about how to create great new designs. If you were surprised by the focus this book places on non-computer games, you'll be even more surprised to see how it uses principles, methods, and examples from things that aren't even games. Examples from music, architecture, film, science, painting, literature, and everything else under the sun will be pulled in. And why not? Why should we have to develop all our principles from scratch when hard work has been going on in other fields, sometimes for hundreds or thousands of years? Design principles will come from everywhere, because design is everywhere, and design is the same everywhere. Not only will this book draw design inspiration from everywhere, it will persuade you to do the same. Everything you know and everything you have experienced is fair game at the game design table. It does not make much difference what a person studies. All knowledge is related, and the man who studies anything, if he keeps at it, will become learned. Hypatia. The map. Game design is not an easy subject to write about. Lenses and fundamentals are useful tools, but to truly understand game design is to understand an incredibly complex web of creativity, psychology, art, technology, and business. Everything in this web is connected to everything else. Changing one element affects all the others, and the understanding of one element influences the understanding of all of the others. Most experienced designers have built up this web in their minds, slowly over many years, learning the elements and relationships by trial and error.
You can access over
Freaking ads,
$3,500
man.
in value each year.
Most experienced designers have built up this web in their minds, slowly, over many years, learning the elements and relationships by trial and error. And this is what makes game design so hard to write about. Books are necessarily linear. One idea must be presented at a time. For this reason, many game design books have an incomplete feeling to them, like a guided nighttime tour with a flashlight. The reader sees a lot of interesting things, but can't really comprehend how they all fit together. Game design is an adventure. An adventure needs a map. For this book, I've created a map that shows the web of game design relationships. You can see the complete map near the end of the book, but to see the entire map at once is confusing and overwhelming. Picasso once said, "To create, one must first destroy." And so we will. We set everything aside and begin our map as a blank slate. As we do, I encourage you too to set aside your preconceptions about game design so that you can approach this difficult but fascinating subject with an open mind. Chapter 1 will begin by adding a single element, the designer. Successive chapters will add other elements, one at a time, gradually building up the complex system of relationships between designer, player, game, team, and client so that you can see how they fit together and why they fit together the way that they do. By the end of the book, you will have, both on paper and in your mind, a map of these relationships. Of course, the map on paper is not the important one. The important one is the one in your mind. And the map is not the territory. It will necessarily be imperfect. But hopefully after this book helps you create a map of relationships in your mind, you will test your mental map against reality, altering it and augmenting it as you find parts of it that can be improved. Every designer goes through the journey of building their own personal map of these relationships. If you're new to game design, this book should be able to give you the beginnings of your map. If you're already a seasoned game designer, I hope that this book can give you some ideas about how to improve the map that you have. Learning to think. Every truth has 4 corners. As a teacher, I give you 1 corner, and it's for you to find the other 3. Confucius. Confucius said that. I am Confucius. What is Confucius talking about? Shouldn't a good teacher know all 4 corners, laying everything out plainly? No. To truly learn, remember, and understand, your mind must be in a state of questing, of seeking to find knowledge. If it is not in this state, a state of really wanting to deeply understand, the wisest principles will roll off of you like water off of a duck. There will be times in this book where things will not be laid out plainly, times where things are intentionally less clear so that when you do uncover the truth, it means something to you. There's another reason for this sometimes cryptic approach. As discussed earlier, game design is not an exact science. It's full of mysteries and contradictions. Our set of lenses will be incomplete and imperfect. To become a great game designer, it's not enough to be familiar with the set of principles this book has to offer. You must be ready to think for yourself, to figure out why certain principles don't work in certain cases, and to invent new principles of your own. We await our Mendeleev. Perhaps it's you. You know, I'm a level with you. It's not me. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited to continue. Oh my gosh, dude, you can only see the cap of this lid. That's crazy. Wow. I have no doubt that over the course of my life and the pursuit of working in the games industry, I have no doubt that I will learn a lot and that I will become a great designer. I do think that that is a good possibility. It's a little bit interesting because I say a good designer. I'm actually not going into the realm of design. Like, that is not where my aspirations are at this point in time.
I canceled all my food delivery subscriptions and
My
upgraded to
aspirations at
Cooking
this time are to be working in the realm of production. Production is very, very much so different from, like, you are doing a huge amount of administrative stuff as a producer. If you're working in the realm of production, in all likelihood, especially if you're at the AAA level, you're doing things like balancing budgets and looking at the current spread of optimization and resource utilization across the different departments that you are responsible for being the producer of. It is your job to identify points in the system where you are capable of improving upon those inefficiencies. Working as a producer on a game, at least at the AAA level, from my understanding and what I've been told and taught, is largely a very non-creative experience to have. And that is something that I am okay with. I think that what my path will look like, based on my current plans and what I'm going to be doing over the course of this next year to pursue the path of production, it's going to involve a huge amount of administrative and pretty dry types of education. There will be other elements of the games industry that I will be learning to engage in the future. They are falling to the wayside, probably over the course of this next year to year and a half, in a way that I didn't expect them to when because, you know, I have my Tom Lumen C++ course for Unreal Engine 5. I have a lot of other things that I've looked at in pursuit of specifically Unreal Engine, just in general. All of that stuff is stuff that I still genuinely do want to learn about. It has to fall to the wayside for me, because if I want... I'm essentially left with the decision of there is no wrong path. But if you want to accomplish your goals, whatever those goals are, and you want to do it in as short a time frame as possible, that requires focus and a willingness to pass up on other opportunities that are genuinely very, very good. I've come to believe that there are very few decisions that the average person is going to make in life that are... Well, no, that's probably not a good way to put it. I'm going to stop myself from saying that because I don't feel like that's actually the best way to put it. In life, I would say that there are the ability to beat out the competition. However you define that, is heavily dictated by your own willingness to just stay focused on a problem. If you have someone who is trying to learn to make a quilt, and they're terrible at it, but they essentially quilt a new design every single day, And then you have another person who also wants to learn how to quilt. And they look at all these different advanced techniques of how to do quilting. They are spending a lot of time talking with experts in quilting. Generally speaking, the person who actually spends more time learning how to quilt is going to become a better quilter faster. Now, that's not to say that talking with people who are experts at quilting isn't going to provide value. But the whole point that I'm trying to make, and maybe I'm not doing the greatest job of it, but the whole point that I'm trying to make is that focusing on the problem at hand and focusing on solving that problem as fast as possible is going to more commonly be the differentiator between you accomplishing whatever goal you're setting for yourself than the difficulty of than someone who is lacking focus on the specific thing that they're trying to do. Maybe a better example that I could give in relation to this would be, LeBron James. I'm not a basketball person, but my understanding is that LeBron James, in particular, he spent, or maybe it wasn't LeBron James, maybe it was Kobe Bryant. Might have been Kobe. But either way, it was one of the two of them. The stats, I think it was Kobe, that Kobe had, and the level of play that Kobe was capable of delivering is arguably unparalleled. And the reason for that is because he was the first one to be in the court practicing every single day, and he was the last one to be in the court practicing every single day. He was the first one there, and he was the last one to leave. Without fail, every single day. If you have someone who is naturally gifted, they will be beat by the other person who has less natural skill and the capacity to just tenaciously never stop working to improve. And that will be the most mind-numbing, boring thing that you can do as an individual. And I guarantee you, you will beat out everyone else in the process. The action plan that I had over the course of the next year, I talked with one of my instructors about it, and he gave me some very, very valuable advice. I was kind of splitting my time between development and production, and he said, if you want to accomplish your goals in the time that you have, in the time that you're laying out here, you need to be focused. You can accomplish a ton of things. And you can make money doing a lot of things. If you want to accomplish your goals in a short time frame and make a lot more money in a shorter time frame, being focused on developing one very specific set of skills will get you there, and it will be mind-numbingly boring. So learning to enjoy the pursuit itself of excellence is what you have to do if you want to succeed and excel in any application or area of your life. And I wholeheartedly believe that. So, with that being said, I need to crack this open because I'm running on 5 hours of sleep and I'm kind of tired. And I work in a little less than 2 hours. So I need a little pick-me-up to get my day going. I will be wrapping up stream in about 30 minutes though, guys, because I'm going to make myself some breakfast. I haven't had anything to eat yet, and I need to give myself something to eat. Why I hate books. I hate books, for they only teach people to talk about what they don't understand. That's actually kind of interesting. I feel like a lot can I feel like you can actually say that about fucking YouTube videos as well. And I'm definitely guilty of that as well. Which, funnily enough, you also run into this conundrum of, you know, if you're watching a shit ton of YouTube videos, how do you know what specific credentials or proof does the average YouTuber have that they are the expert in what it is that they're talking about? You know, that's its own conundrum. Regardless, of whether or not they are an expert in their field or whatever it is that they are talking about,
Gym Monster 2. Now, if you're not familiar with
the same
Gym
principle
Monster,
can be
let's
applied.
first talk about
So many people hear something on the internet and just parrot it as if it is their own original thought, or as if they understand the underlying logic of what allowed someone to arrive at the conclusion that they did. I think most people don't, and they just like sounding smart. So, that quote, while it's about books, I believe can be applied to pretty much any content out there. Oh, shoot, almost knocked over my drink. That was close. That would have been bad. The thing is very full. All right. It's very important to have a balanced approach to study and practice. Please do not think that reading this book, or any book, will make you into a game designer, much less a great game designer. Game design is not a set of principles. It is an activity. You could no sooner become a singer, pilot, or basketball player by reading a book than you could become a game designer. There's only one path to becoming a game designer, and that is the path of designing games. And, more to the point, designing games that people really like. That means that simply jotting down your game idea isn't enough. You must build the game, play it yourself, and let others play it. When it doesn't satisfy, and it won't, you have created a game that, and it won't, you must change it. And change it. And change it again. Dozens of times. Until you've created a game that people actually enjoy playing. When you've been through this a few times, then you will start to understand what game design is. There's a saying among game designers, your first 10 games will suck, so get them out of the way fast. The principles in this book will help to guide your designs and give you useful perspectives on how to make better designs faster. But you can only become a good designer through practice. If you're not really interested in becoming a good game designer, put this book down now. It has nothing for you. But if you truly do want to be a game designer, then this book is not an end, but a beginning. The beginning of a continuous process of study, practice, assimilation, and synthesis that is going to last the rest of your life. Chapter 1. In the beginning, there is the designer. Magic words. Would-be designers often ask me, how do you become a game designer? And the answer is easy. Design games. Start now. Don't wait. Don't even finish this conversation. Just start designing. Go. Now. And some of them do just that. But many have a crisis of confidence and feel stuck in a catch-22. If only game designers can design games, and you can only become a game designer by designing games, how can anyone ever get started? If this is how you feel, the answer is easy. Just say these magic words. I am a game designer. I'm serious. Say them out loud, right now. Already done, baby. Don't be shy. There's no one here but us. Sorry, that's not quite true. Did you do it? If so, congratulations. You are now a game designer. You might feel at this moment that you aren't really a game designer yet, but that you're just pretending to be one. And that's fine because, as we'll explore later, people become what they pretend to be. Just go on pretending, doing the things you think a game designer would do, and before long, to your surprise, you will find you are one. If your confidence wavers, just repeat the magic words again. I am a game designer. Sometimes I repeat them like this. Who are you? I am a game designer. No, you're not. I am a game designer. What kind of a game designer? I am a game designer. You mean you play games? I am a game designer. This game of confidence building may seem silly at first, but it is far from the silliest thing you will do as a designer, and it is terribly important that you get good at building your confidence, for doubts about your abilities will forever plague you. As a novice designer, you'll think, I've never done this, I don't know what I'm doing.
Fiber. Sweet without the crash.
Let's skip this
Magic
here a little
Spoon
bit.
protein.
Once you have a little experience, you'll think, my skills are so narrow, this new title is different. Maybe I just got lucky last time. And when you're a seasoned designer, you'll think, the world is different now. Maybe I've lost my touch. Blow away these useless thoughts. They can't help you. When a thing must be attempted, one must never think about the possibility or impossibility. If you look at the great creative minds, all so different, you will find that they have one thing in common. They lack a fear of ridicule. Some of the greatest innovations have come from people who only succeeded because they were too dumb to know what they were doing was impossible. Game design is decision making, and decisions must be made with confidence. Will you fail sometimes? Yes, you will. You will fail again and again and again. You will fail many, many more times than you will succeed. But these failures are your only path to success. You will come to love your failures because each failure brings you a step closer to a truly phenomenal game. There's a saying amongst jugglers. If you aren't dropping, you aren't learning. And if you aren't learning, you aren't a juggler. The same is true for game design. If you aren't failing, you aren't trying hard enough, and you aren't really a game designer. What skills does a game designer need? In short, all of them. Almost anything that you can be good at can become a useful skill for a game designer. Here are some of the big ones listed alphabetically. Animation. Modern games are full of characters that need to seem alive. The very word animation means to give life. Understanding the powers and limits of character animation will let you open the door for clever game design ideas the world has yet to see. Anthropology. You'll be studying your audience in their natural habitat, trying to figure out their heart's desire so that your games might satisfy that desire. Architecture. You'll be designing more than buildings. You'll be designing whole cities and worlds. Familiarity with the world of architecture, that is. Understanding the relationships between people and spaces will give you a tremendous leg up in creating game worlds. Brainstorming. You will need to create new ideas by the dozens, nay, by the hundreds. Business. The game industry is just that, an industry. Most games are made to make money. The better you understand the business end of things, the better chance you have of making the game of your dreams. Take another sip of my caffeine here. Cinematography. Many games will have movies in them. Almost all modern video games have a virtual camera. You need to understand the art of cinematography if you want to deliver an emotionally compelling experience. Communication. You'll need to talk with people in every discipline listed here and even more. You'll need to resolve disputes, solve problems of miscommunication, and learn the truth about how your teammates, your client, and your audience really feel about your game. Creative writing. You'll be creating entire fictional worlds, populations to live in them, and deciding the events that will happen there. Economics. Many modern games feature complex economies of game resources. An understanding of the rules of economies can be surprisingly helpful. Honestly, part of me wonders, like a little bit of a side tangent here, but my brother, he works as an accountant, and he's very like enamored with the world of economics. He really, really likes understanding how the economic systems of the world function and how they interact with each other, and how that can be, you know, over time leveraged into how can I ensure that my understanding of this plays out in my favor, and how can I do my best to just try to position myself as effectively as possible given the current state of like the economics in the world. I would be very, very curious to know if like the micro elements of the economic stuff would be something that he would excel at in the world of video games. Granted, I don't think he has any desire to do any of that, like to like be an economist for like a game company or a game,
You can unlock more than ever with the
any
American
game
Express
development
Platinum
company.
Card. Access over $3,500.
But I
in
actually
value.
think that he would probably not be too bad at it. I think that his designs would probably be too narrow in like, or that his focus would probably be a little bit too narrow in consideration to be able to learn to make it fun, generally speaking. But, you know, I mean, Skyrim has an economy system. You know, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has an economy system. Baldur's Gate 3 has an economy system. Apex Legends has an economy system. There's economy systems in like pretty much every single game out there.
And those economy systems do a huge amount of heavy lifting to ensure that the experience of the systems that you're engaging with feel fun and not cumbersome. Like a good example of what feels like a cumbersome economy system. And this is very, very simplistic, but I was playing Black Ops 3 Zombies the other day with my sister and one of my friends. And while we were playing that, I was explaining essentially Liquid Divinium to my sister, which is a currency that you can earn by playing zombies, spending your points, and when you spend your points, or when you spend that Liquid Divinium, you get some, like, essentially one-time use buffs that you can use when you're playing zombies. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The buffs that you can get are a lot of fun to play with. Like, they make a lot of meaningful changes to the way that you can engage with the game itself. And that's a lot of fun to do. It is not something that, in my opinion, is a fun system to engage with. And that is by design. I love the systems that you can engage with through the Liquid Divinium, but the actual currency of the Liquid Divinium itself is intentionally designed to be frustratingly slow to accumulate. It gives you just enough drip feed to consistently remind you that it's there, but will give you so few rewards for doing it, and they do so specifically because it's a microtransaction system. You can purchase Liquid Divinium. That is something that is very, very frustrating. They intentionally designed it that way as a manner of being able to, you know, farm more currency from people. And I get it. It's a game. They gotta make their money, especially if it's Call of Duty, you know. Call of Duty, Activision, Treyarch, Infinity Ward. They are all part of, like, the biggest games, like, the biggest game cycle in, like, the entirety of gaming, just in general. Well, it's not the biggest. There's other games that are definitely bigger. I'm sure Candy Crush makes more money than... I'm pretty positive in saying that Call of Duty Mobile actually makes a lot more than, like, the regular Call of Duty mainline franchise games. But the Call of Duty mainline franchise games also get a lot more eyeballs on them. So people, which is a very interesting dynamic in my opinion, from the business perspective. Like, part of me wonders how much money Call of Duty Mobile makes specifically because of how successful the mainline Call of Duty franchise. Like, there's probably economists that can, like, maybe not economists, but I don't know what the term would be for them, but statisticians maybe, but people that are able to draw these correlating factors of, you know, this game that we spend hundreds of millions of dollars advertising may not be accessible to everyone, but for the people that it's not accessible to and don't want to spend the $60 or $70 on to buy, those people are going to want to find that fix somewhere else, and Call of Duty Mobile 100% fills that gap. And they may not spend $70 or $80 on a game, but they'll spend $4 or $5 here and there for a couple microtransactions, small battle pass system, Cool skin. I'm pretty sure Call of Duty Mobile makes a hell of a lot more than the mainline franchise does. It's pretty interesting. Anyways. Engineering. Modern video games involve some of the most complex engineering in the world today, with some titles continuing their lines of code in the counting their lines of code in the millions. New technical innovations make new kinds of gameplay possible. Innovative game designers must understand both the limits and the powers that each technology brings. History. Many games are placed in historical settings. Even ones placed in fantasy setting can draw incredible inspiration from history. Management. Anytime a team works together toward a goal, there must be some management. Good designers can succeed even when management is bad, secretly managing from below to get the job done. While production is not technically speaking management, I would imagine that there's a high degree of overlap between those actual skill sets. Mathematics. Games are full of mathematics, probability, risk analysis, complex scoring systems, not to mention the mathematics that stands behind computer graphics and computer science in general. A skilled designer must not be afraid to delve into math from time to time. Music. Music is the language of the soul. If your games are going to truly touch people, to immerse and embrace them, they cannot do it without music. Psychology. Your goal is to make a human being happy. You must understand the workings of the human mind, or you are designing in the dark. Public speaking. You will frequently need to present your ideas to a group. Sometimes you will speak to solicit their feedback. Sometimes you'll speak to persuade them of the genius of your new idea. Whatever the reason, you must be confident, clear, natural, and interesting, or people will be suspicious that you don't know what you're doing. Sound design. Sound is what truly convinces the mind that it is in a place. In other words, hearing is believing. Technical writing. You need to create documents that clearly describe your complex designs without leaving any holes or gaps. Visual arts. Your games will be full of graphic elements. You must be fluent in the language of graphic design and know how to use it to create the feeling you want your game to have. And of course, there are many more. Daunting, isn't it? How could anyone possibly master all of those things? The truth is that no one can. But the more of these things you are comfortable working with, however imperfectly, the better off you will be. This is another reason that game designers must be confident and fearless. But there's one skill that is key to all of the others. The most important skill. Of all the skills mentioned in the previous section, one is far and away the most important. And it sounds so strange to most people that I didn't even list it. Many people guess creativity, and I would argue that this is probably the second most important skill. Some guess critical thinking or logic, since game design is about decision making. These are indeed important, but by no means the most important skill. Some say communication, which starts to get close. The word communication has unfortunately become corrupted over the centuries. It once referred to an exchange of ideas, but has now become a synonym for talking, as in, I have something to communicate to you. Talking is certainly an important skill, but good communication and good game design are rooted in something far more basic and far more important. Listening. The most important skill for a game designer is listening. Game designers must listen to many things. These can be grouped into 5 major categories: team, audience, game, client, and self. Most of this book will be about how to listen to these 5 things. This may sound absurd to you. Is listening even a skill? We're not equipped with earlids. How can we help but listen? know exactly where he's going with this. There's a huge difference between hearing and listening. Hearing, and he'll probably go into it, but hearing is literally just having the actual sound waves themselves hit your eardrums. Listening is to be engaged with what it is that's being spoken, to actively ask questions about what it is that's being spoken, to assume that the other person, however stupid you may think that they are, has something of value that you do not know to contribute to the conversation. Assuming that you know less than the person you are talking to, and that the person that you are talking to has something that is incredibly important and valuable for you to hear. And doing everything in your power to set all of your presuppositions and your assumptions about who this person is and what it is they're saying aside. That is what listening is. And it is significantly more difficult than people realize. And it requires a very, very high degree of a willingness for people to recognize what their own mind is doing in the moment. That is very hard to do. So, if you want something actionable for how you can actually go about addressing that and how you can improve your listening, the best thing that you can do is to increase your own self-awareness. Self-awareness being not even critically analyzing what it is that you're thinking or why you're thinking it, but simply to say in the moment when you're angry or when you're happy, when you're scared, when you're sad, to be able to, in that moment, while you are experiencing those emotions, take a step back and evaluate how you got to the spot that you are in and what is currently going through your mind in that moment. Not even draw any conclusions about it. Simply observe it and acknowledge it. Don't only go through the motions. You should still go through the motions because processing emotion is incredibly important. And feeling those emotions is also incredibly important. And this shouldn't be something that you do literally all the time. But the more that you can train yourself to recognize and acknowledge what you're feeling, when you're feeling it, and be able to effectively describe why you're feeling what you're feeling, the better you will be at listening to others. Because if you can't listen to yourself, you have no chance of being able to consistently listen to others. There's my little TED Talk. Let's see. First sentence. By listening, I don't mean merely hearing what is said. I'm locked the fuck in right now. I mean a deeper listening, a thoughtful listening. For example, you are at work and you see your friend, Fred. Hi, Fred. How are you? You say. Fred frowns, looks down, shifts his weight uncomfortably, seems to be hunting for words, and then says quietly without eye contact, fine, I guess. And then he collects himself, takes a breath, and looks you in the eye, and as he determinedly, but not convincingly says a little louder, I'm fine. How are you? So, how is Fred? His words say he's fine. Great. Fred is fine. If you are just surface listening, you might draw that conclusion. But if you listen more deeply, paying full attention to Fred's body language, subtle facial expressions, tone of voice, and gestures, you might hear a very different message. Actually, I'm not fine.
I have a serious problem that I think I might want to discuss with you, but I won't do that unless I get some kind of commitment from you that you really care about my problem, because it is kind of a personal issue. If you don't want to get involved with it, though, I won't bother you with it, and I'll just pretend that everything is okay. All of that was right there in Fred's "I'm fine." And if you were listening deeply to what he said, you heard it all, clear as a bell, plain as day, as if he'd said it out loud. This is the kind of listening that game designers must engage in, day out, with every decision that they make. When you listen thoughtfully, you observe everything and constantly ask yourself questions. Is that right? Why is it that way? Is this how she really feels? Now that I know that, what does it mean? Game designer Brian Moriarty once pointed out that there was a time when we didn't use the word listen. Instead, we said list. And where does this come from? Well, what do we do when we listen? We tip our head to one side. Our head literally lists as a boat at sea. And when we tip to one side, we put ourselves off balance. We accept the possibility of upset. When we listen deeply, we put ourselves in a position of risk. We accept the possibility that what we hear may upset us, may cause everything we know to be contradicted. It is the ultimate in open-mindedness. It is the ultimate in open-mindedness. It's the only way to learn the truth. You must approach everything as a child does, assuming nothing, observing everything, listening as Hermann Hesse describes in Siddhartha? I don't know how to pronounce that, but I'll read this quote. To listen with a silent heart, with a waiting, open soul, without passion, without desire, without judgment, without rebuke. I do actually want to keep reading more, but at this point in time, I do need to wrap up. I need to continue. I need to give myself a little bit of breakfast, because I work here relatively soon, and the last 2 days in a row, I have not really been able to eat much, and I need to remedy that. I shouldn't say these last 2 days I haven't been able to eat much, but specifically yesterday I was very, very much so like, ooh. I think I had like 4 slices of bacon. That was it. No, and I had a little bit of a chicharrones as well, some pork rinds. But yeah, so I'm going to make a little bookmark here.
Is that you have
page
to choose
5.
between reaching your goals and actually enjoying your food.
I'm gonna use this as a bookmark. It's just a little piece of package material because I don't have an actual bookmark thing here. But alright guys, there we go. That's where we're at. Depending on how much progress I make on other stuff that I have that I want to get done over the course of the next few days, I may do some extra streams in the late afternoons, early evenings, but that's very much so dependent on other stuff that I have to get done that will be taken care of. But most of what I'm going to be going through, guys, is going to be book material. It's going to be stuff that is related to like education in the realm of production. And so it's going to be kind of detailing a lot of work that I've done over the course of, few weeks. Like I'm going to be doing stuff on a weekly basis to kind of keep people up to date on what it is that I'm actually doing. And those are all going to be publicly accessible records that, anyone is able to look at. But
with that being said, I am going to wrap that there. So, thank you guys for stopping on in, hanging out. I do appreciate it. I will not be live tomorrow. No, yeah, I will not be live tomorrow, and I don't think the day after either. I don't remember exactly what I set my schedule to be, but I can check that super quick because I did post my schedule in Discord. Let's take a peek at it real quick. Yeah, so Tuesday and Wednesday, I will not be live. I will be live again at Thursday and Friday. I will do my damnedest to ensure that I am on time for my streams for both of those days. Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm working at 6:30, so I'm not willing to get up any earlier than 5 a.m. And if I'm getting up at 5:30 or 5 a.m. and starting my streams at 5:30, I'm definitely not in a mode of, oh yeah, let me stream for, 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. I'm just not going to do that I would much rather on those days just take a little bit of time in the morning to kind of start my day off a little bit slow and then work on into everything else. But so I will be live again Thursday, 5:30 a.m. I will be on time. I'll be sure to make sure I go to bed at a decent hour so I can actually be on time, because I'm running on like 5 hours of sleep right now, and that is my own fault. But here we are. So thank you guys again for stopping in, hanging out. I will be live again on Thursday, 5:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. In the meantime, keep things moving and grooving, going and flowing, styling and profiling.